Hello, my name is Davionica Brownlee. I am an advocate for Sjogren syndrome and also Behcet syndrome. I was diagnosed with Behcet syndrome in 2009. Previously to that, I was having all kind of crazy things going on with my body. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I had a cataract in my left eye. I had to have it removed. I had mouth ulcers, and nobody could explain to me why that was going on. I had parotid stones, which is associated with the Sjogren's, and nobody was able to tell me why I was experiencing these things. And finally, I went to a rheumatologist by the name of Dr. Amir Aga, and I started explaining a lot of the symptoms, and he told me right off the bat that I was classic Behcet syndrome and classic Sjogren syndrome. I will be talking with you and letting you guys know my journey this far. Last year in September, I got really sick with my Behcet's. I ended up being in the hospital for almost 3 weeks. All I remember is waking up telling my mom that I was experiencing really bad chest pain. Prior to that, the day before, we had gone to the emergency room with me complaining of really bad chest pain, and the doctor in the ER did a barium swallow on me, and he said, and the whole time he was doing it, I was crying, and he said, "Sweetie, I don't understand why you're crying." He said, "Because I'm not seeing anything." And I told him, I said, "Sir," I said, "I don't know what's going on, but there's something wrong." I said, "It's hurting me really bad to swallow this." And he gave me a couple prescriptions, and he sent me home. The next night, it was about 12, I think my mom said. I woke her up, and I was complaining of really bad chest pain and a headache. She took me to my local hospital, and they checked me in, and I remember them saying that my blood pressure was like 260 over 190, and my heart rate was like 275. My iron level was really low, which is my hemoglobin. It was like a 7.5. They put a blood bank bracelet on me, and they rushed me right from that hospital because I work with those nurses there, and they said they didn't know what was going on with me, but they knew that it wasn't right. So they wanted to get me out of there and give me the best care possible. I was shipped to a sister hospital, and I was placed in the emergency room. At that time, I remember feeling that my feet were burning really bad, and I was in a lot of pain. I remember my head was hurting really bad, and the whole time I was kind of like going in and out. Through this time period, my heart rate and blood pressure were still elevated. One of the nurses had given me morphine, which I will never ever take again in my life. It made my blood pressure and heart rate go even higher, and really scared my family a lot. During this time, my left eye started to get really big. It got to be about the size of an egg, and my mom said that it looked like it was going to pop out. It was so distorted that a lot of the ICU nurses, once I was placed in the ICU, kept wondering, had I been in a really bad car accident? I stayed in the ICU for about almost near a week until they were able to get all of my vitals and everything under control. I remember them giving me a drug called cardiozyme, which is a drug that normally you give the patient whose heart rate is like through the roof, that medicine, and it kind of lowers the patient's heart rate. I remember them giving me the medicine, and it dropped my heart rate from like 290 to 73. And I remember feeling like my heart was going to quit beating altogether, and it scared me. And my mom was in the room with me, and then all of a sudden it picked back up and it went to like 295. And the doctor was like, holy shit. You know, like, what do I do now? And he left out of the room, called the cardiologist, and the cardiologist told him to put me on a drip of it. And he also had to put me on a patch for my blood pressure because the medicines that they were giving me for my blood pressure were not working at all. I then had to be monitored in the ICU for several more days. Not to mention, my eye was steadily getting bigger. Throughout that process, I vaguely remember much at all going on because, like I said, I was kind of like going in and out of it. When I finally came to in the ICU, I remember telling my nurse that I needed to get up and go to the restroom, and she said, okay. And so I got ready to get up and go to the restroom, and I couldn't walk. And I'm a person that wears 6-inch heels all the time. And like I started crying, so she went and got a walker. And I went to the bathroom using the walker. I was so embarrassed and so hurt that I was having to use a walker. Like it killed me because like I had just worn heels like prior to that. It was ridiculous. I also underwent a EGD, and they found out where the chest pain was coming from. Behcet's had created these esophageal lesions on my esophagus and down into my abdomen, where it looked like someone had taken a razor blade and just like scraped across it. And so that's where all the pain was coming from. I had to be placed on a clear liquid diet for the time that I was in the hospital and for about the next 3 months when I came home. When I finally got placed in a regular room in the hospital, which was probably a week after that, I had to do physical therapy because I had forgotten how to walk. I couldn't walk. I had to have these pressure pumps put on my legs because Behcet's affects your blood vessels, and they figured that they didn't want me to form any blood clots, and Behcet's also forms aneurysms, which in February of 2013 I was hospitalized because we thought that I had a really bad case of pneumonia. And come to find out, after they did a bronch wash and the whole nine, it was actually my Behcet's causing me to form blood clots in my lungs and aneurysms. And each time that I coughed, the aneurysms were popping. And so I was able to cough them up and out, and it was chunks of blood clots, which freaked me out terribly. Thankfully I made it through that ordeal. Thankfully I made it through the ordeal in September. Behcet's can really wreak havoc on your body. It can really scare you to death. It can almost take your life. It almost took my life in September. When I came home, well, when I was in the hospital, the doctor that I had, because nobody at this hospital had ever heard of Behcet's or Sjogren's, they were really scared. They were really freaked out. They didn't want to let me leave to come home. They didn't want to, like, I had basically 24-hour care. I was on a heart monitor the whole entire time. I've never had heart problems. I've never had blood pressure problems. But they monitored me 24/7. They didn't want to take a chance on me going back into that crisis. I realized that my feet, well, that I had neuropathy in both feet. Like the second day that the physical therapist came to get me to walk, they brought a walker in my room, and I was hell bent on not using it. I am a person that is very strong-willed, and I refused to use a walker. I was like, I wasn't using one before I came in here, and I'm not going to use it now. And I proved to them and to myself that I could go above and beyond and do what I needed to do and get myself home and get myself back to my family, because my family meant everything to me. Without them, like, I probably wouldn't have made it to where I am now. Yes, they babied me, and I needed that. Anybody that has Behcet, you need to be babied. That's a real live dangerous illness to have. My dad used to joke a lot and say, you have the what? The shits disease. I'm his only biological child, which I have a sister and he raised her, and I have a younger sister and he's raising her. We adopted her, and he really looks back on that and he struggles with how he joked about that. He feels really bad, and because of the simple fact that I could have been gone, and I could have. If they hadn't been able to get everything under control in the time frame that they did, then I could have very easily been gone. I thank God for allowing me to still be here and to share my story, because I felt like when I was in the hospital that it was very depressing, because I felt like, oh gosh, I'm the only person that I know of that has this. I'm the only person that I can talk to about these things. But then I got online and I started doing research, and I started meeting other people that have this, they're not here in South Carolina with me, but they're in other places like Mississippi and Arizona and places like that. And so it makes me feel really good to know that I'm not in this thing by myself. And so hopefully by me telling my story that I can reach out to somebody else that has it. And to let you know that when things start to go bad, I know you're going to get scared, but don't freak out. Just pray about it like I did. And every day I wake up, there's always something new. I still have neuropathy in both feet. And people say, how do you walk around in heels? Honestly, that's the best way for me to help my neuropathy, because that's the only way I don't feel the pins and needles, is by wearing the heels and having pressure on both feet.